Vengo a cantarles, señores, de un hombre muy valiente. Él viene a proteger y servir a los residentes. Su nombre está mi Rodella, el consentido de la gente.
Hello and welcome to another episode of ¿Qué Paso? I want to thank you for joining us, and I encourage you to please share our story with others and give us a like. I also want to take care of a few things before we get started. I want to do a few shout outs. I want to do a shout out to my very good friend Flavio Thomas in Rio Grande City in Texas. ¿Qué pasó, Flavio? Nice to talk to you. I also want to send a shout out to a couple of people that are still locked up. Real sad the story in their case, the incredible injustice. Sam Lindblad, hang in there, sir. Randall Anderson, how are you? And of course, I want to say hello to my friend Noverto Pando Aranda in El Paso. ¿Qué pasó, Arandita? Hope to see you soon, sir. And I want to take care of a few other matters. For those of you that want to message us through Facebook, you can do it through Messenger. For those of you in YouTube, you can do it through the comment section, and on TikTok you can do the direct message, or let me give you my mailing address. It'll be in the video later on. It's 9419 ND, and it's spelled ENDEE, Road Northwest, Albuquerque, New Mexico 87120. Having done all that, I want to introduce my guest for today, Nancy Ortiz. She lives in San Juan. I do want to say a couple of things before I hand it over to her. People don't know this, and to me it's important that people understand. Years ago there was a vote taken on legalizing Indian gambling in the state of New Mexico. And the vote came down to a tie. And there was one person that was very influential in changing the vote of a legislator that legalized Indian gambling. And I don't believe that acknowledgement has ever been made. She never sought the acknowledgement. She's the one that stays as far away from that as possible. But she's been a big political player in Okewinge, and it's Nancy Ortiz. Nancy, you have anything to share with us?
Hello, my name is Nancy Ortiz, and originally I come from the Sioux tribe in Sisseton, South Dakota. And the name of the tribe is Sisseton Wahpeton Oyapte. And I grew up there through several boarding schools, and as I graduated from Flandreau Indian School, I headed to Haskell, which was a junior college at the time. And from there I met my late husband, Artie Ortiz, and that's how I ended up in Okewinge. In 1976, I was hired as a secretary in Okewinge, and I had been there for 46 years before I retired in 2023.
Well, Nancy, I think you're a tremendous asset to the Native American populace, very specifically to San Juan, and I know that over the years you've been very supportive of our political efforts, and I want to thank you for that. Tremendous asset. Anyhow, without further ado, I think I want to continue my story. I believe where we left off on the last story, on the last episode, was I was stationed. I was doing time in Texarkana, and Güero had just left the compound. The First Step Act had affected his time, and he was able to go home early. And it was then that Saldivar took over the representation of the Paisas. And it wasn't long after that. And I can get into some of the details. I ran a store, and the reason I ran a store is I knew my family was had enough financial burdens. As part of the sentence, there was a $200,000 fine imposed, and knowing that, I knew I needed to make my effort to carry myself financially and help what little I could. And it was for that reason that I started a little store. And there was a lot of there's money to be made in it. I was able to enjoy some of the better foods that are available through commissary. There was always food that was taken from the officers' mess hall, and it was for sale, and I was able to afford some of those foods. Not every meal and not every day, but I was able to enjoy it. But in running that store, I had problems with one of the paisas. He bought, never paid back, and it was based on the action that I took. And let me say this. In prison, if you ever have problems with a gang member, you have to bring it to the attention of their speaker. I didn't know that. Well, I've never been a member of a gang. Anyhow, it was my actions in addressing that that led to me being thrown in the SHU. That's known as a special housing unit, and a hit being put on me. So I was in the SHU for about 4 months, and from there I was transferred. I was transferred to Seagoville. But in the federal system, anytime you get transferred from one unit to another, you have to go back to the hub for that region. And again, the hub for this region is Oklahoma City. So I landed up back in Oklahoma City. In Oklahoma City, it's very dangerous because you've got prisoners from every level of detention, meaning all the way from high risk, very high risk, all the way down to people that are going to the camp. But I had already learned how to do my time at that hub, and actually let me back up. So when I went to that hub, I was assigned to a county jail by the name of Grady County, and we talked about this a little bit. That was probably the best time I ever had. Not that they're good times, but probably the best time I had in my incarceration. I ran into a gentleman there in that pod, Roberto from Denver, Colorado, and again he was very kind and very understanding of my situation, and he made my time there a whole lot easier. And eventually, 2.5 weeks later, I landed up back at the hub in Oklahoma City, and I would find that my time was spent easier just staying in the cell. So even though they opened the door 9 out of 10 times, I just spent my time in there reading. Anyhow, eventually I was sent to Seagoville, and a lot of people don't understand. Before you hit a yard, they already they already know who you are. And when you get there, they test you, and they test you for truthfulness. So I never denied that I was a sheriff. I never denied that, and it wasn't always something that people embraced, but I think that they found some uh, some comfort in knowing that I was truthful. What my background was, and I was very proud of it. I was very proud of the work I did in law enforcement. I think we did great things when I was a sheriff. We were constantly having drug operations, and to me it was very important. I never believed for a second that arresting people would get us out of the drug problem that we have. But I knew that we needed to make our effort. And in holding these operations, I thought that we were doing our effort. Anyhow, so when I land up in Seagoville, they send me to Unit 7. No, that's not correct. They sent me to Unit 6. And Unit 6 is probably one of the biggest units in Seagoville. And so I was assigned to a cell, and all the cells there are open. There's no doors. They're just open. And I still remember the day I walked in. There was this inmate by the name of Buttercup. That's what his nickname was. And he spoke of his father being a prosecutor for the federal system. I don't know how much of this is true. I learned that a lot of these inmates, you can't believe a whole lot of what they say. But the opposite is true too. You run into people like Noberto Aranda, like Flavio Thomas. These guys speak the truth. There's no lying in them. But there's others that, it's not hard to understand why they're there. But anyhow, getting back with the story. So initially, when I landed up in this unit, they were okay with me. In fact, they kind of wanted to know what it was like for me to be locked up, having been in law enforcement, and I shared with them, the hardships and but it wasn't all bad. But within a couple of days, Buttercup changed, and he wanted me out of the cell because I was in law enforcement. And the first few days, I just took it in stride, and it reached a point where I finally told him, "Hey, look, man, you're not wearing blue, meaning you're not a corrections officer. You're not making any decisions for me. If you feel that uncomfortable, you get up and leave. I'm not going anywhere." And his answer was that was an Aryan Circle cell, and that I needed to leave. And I told him, "I'm not going anywhere." This went on for a few days, and on this particular evening, as they were getting ready to do count, I noticed that there was a lot of inmates congregating at the entrance to our cell, and it made me feel very uncomfortable. It made me feel uncomfortable enough that I went downstairs, and using the computers that they allow you, I sent a text back home to my ex-wife. She was my wife then, but she's my ex-wife today, telling her, "Hey, man, if you don't hear from me in a few days, everything's okay, and I'll explain to you." When I came back to my cell, it was thick. I don't have any doubt that there was 80 to 100 inmates outside in the hallway just milling around, and I kind of knew what time it was. So I went in. It wasn't long after that the CO called count, and we had the count. The count means you have to stand while the COs, the corrections officers, go around and they count so that they can know if there's any missing inmates. Which, in all the time I was there was only one time that happened, and we'll talk about that a little later. It's actually comical what happened. But after count was done, I kind of stood around for a while, and nothing happened. So I decided, it's time to get to bed, even though I could see there was still inmates milling around the entrance. So I reached up to my bunk to pull my folding chair down, and as soon as I reached for the for my chair, it was like the ceiling caved in. Two of the Aryan Circle inmates jumped me from behind, and I never understood that. We're talking about grown-ass men that are gang members, and they have to jump someone that's alone from behind. Never made sense to me. But that's what the Aryan Circle members did, 2 of them. And hefty guys. We're not talking guys that were lightweight. Buttercup had to have been upwards of 230, 240. And his partner wasn't a small man either. And they actually had me pinned against the bunk. And I didn't know how much longer I could stand. But in standing there, it didn't take long to realize that if I dropped my shoulder, I could actually get turned around. And anyhow, while they're assaulting me they're battering me from behind, I knew I was being hit with something that wasn't a fist. I didn't know what it was, but I knew it wasn't. I knew it was a weapon. I'll make it very simple. And once I got turned around, the fight changed. And they knew they were in a fight. I mean, just the look in their faces was priceless. And I was able to grab one of them, hold him close to me to kind of use him as a shield from the other. And every now and then I was able to hit the other guy. And this went on for, now, when a fight happens, it seems like it's an eternity, but you're talking maybe 20, 30 seconds. And while I'm swinging this guy to kind of shield me from the other, I pulled him and his t-shirt ripped. And when it ripped, I lost my balance and I kind of landed up halfway outside the cell. And I could see the CO running down the hallway. So when I regained my balance, I stood and I let go. I just stood there with my hands by my side. I knew what time it was. I knew, that the CO was coming to see what was going on. And as I'm standing there with my hands by my side, one of them, I think it was Buttercup, took a swing at me just as the CO came in. Long story short, they took him into the SHU, but they also took me. Buttercup ended up being sent to a whole different facility, a higher level facility. The other inmate was allowed to stay there, and the reason he was allowed to stay on that compound is when they asked me what happened, I told them nothing had happened. See, even though something happens in prison and the CO knows it happened, you really can't talk about it. That'll bring the ire of the entire compound down on you. So I just told him nothing happened, and kind of just tried to dance my way out of what had happened from answering any other questions. Long story short, they ended up sending me to the SHU too, and so I walk into the SHU and they put you in this room where you have to change from what you're wearing on the compound. You have to strip and you have to wear something specific to the SHU. And so I'm waiting to be put in a cell. I don't know who they're going to put me in a cell with. And a few minutes later, they came for me and they led me to this cell. And when I walked in, there was a black guy in there, huge man. I'm not even going to try and begin to give you an idea, but the man was a big man, earnest. Turns out that he had played football, college football for one of the better college teams, and we got to talking, and he tells me, where are you coming from? I told him I'm coming from Unit 6, and he tells me, were you the one that was involved in a fight with 2 other guys that were just sent to the SHU? I said, probably. And he says, man, those guys, the way they were talking, he says, I thought that you'd probably be going to the hospital. He says, but I don't see any marks on you. I said, well, you haven't seen the back of my head or my back. I says, these guys jumped me from behind. And he was just stunned. He says, those guys jumped you from behind? I says, yeah, that's how they fought me, from behind. So I was in there. I don't know if I was in there 2 or 3 days. But eventually, the counselor came to see me. And he tells me, what do you want to do? Not understanding what he was asking. I says, what do you mean, what do I want to do? He says, do you want to be sent to another compound? I said, that doesn't even make sense. I says, I've already established myself in this compound. The inmates know that I'm not going to run from a fight. They know who I am. Why are you going to pick me up, relocate me where I'm going to have to establish myself? It makes no sense at all. He says, well, we're going to let you out, and we're letting out the other guy. I said, I never had any problems with him. I says, so he's the one that had the problem. I have no problems. So he sent me, I'm just trying to keep track of the time here a little bit. So he sends me out into the compound, and I can tell you that there was always trouble. Trouble was always just, lingering around. It didn't take a whole lot for something to happen, but what happened about that time is I ran into, and when I say I ran into, I think I should explain to you. So the way the dining area is set up is the different gangs have their own tables, and only they can sit there. Specifically in this compound, there was probably 3 or 4 in the first row. There was 3 or 4 tables that were paisas, and only the paisas could sit there. But at the end of that row, there was a table for what they called the solanos, and solano meant that you ran alone. You didn't run with anyone, and that's where I sat. And of course, there was other tables where other groups, other gangs sat. There was the chomo tables. There was the tango blast tables. There was the black tables, and there was even one table alone for the sureños, and those guys were always I always had a good relationship with those guys, most of them anyway. But anyhow, it was at the dining table that I was sitting across from this guy, and I had sat across from him on many different occasions. But on this one occasion, I looked at his number, and his number was like mine. It was 051, which meant he was from New Mexico. So I got to talking to him. We spent some time talking, and I come to find out that he's from Portales. And my grandfather's brother on my mom's side, my grandfather's brother, my uncle Ubaldo, he had when he was young, he had moved to Portales. So I asked Aranda. I says, I have relatives in Portales. He says, oh yeah, who are your relatives? And I says, Dijunto Ubaldo Valdez's family, and he knew them all. He says, I know them all the Valdez's. I says, well, that was my grandfather's brother. And so there was a friendship, there was a bond that was created. And we spent a lot of time. We spent time praying. We spent time playing dominoes. We spent time working out. We spent time running, walking. And I learned a lot from Aranda. And I come to find out, and I'm gonna end with this last sentence. I come to find out that his father, Domingo Aranda, was one of the original cartel members. And I want to ask you, Nancy, will you join us for one more episode of Que Paso podcast, and I'll finish telling my story.
Yeah.
Okay. I want to thank you guys for joining us, and it's just that we're out of time. I expect to be back with Nancy and finish telling you that story, and we'll move on with with my time in Seagoville, and I want to share maybe some war stories with you next time. All right. Thank you for your time, and again, please like us and share our story. Thank you.
Condado de Río Arriba, quiero pedirle su apoyo para elegir a este hombre. No se olviden de su nombre en el día de elecciones. Recuerden todos Tommy Rodella.
Este anuncio fue pagado por los muchos amigos de Tommy Rodella.